Hello, friends. Well, here I am with the latest Uriah Heep album, Living the Dream. And we're about to go deep on Heep here. We're going to look at the latest album, 2018. Their discography starts in 1970, so this is 48 years later they've put out this album. I'm also going to talk about the Bernie Shaw era, which is represented by these previous studio albums. I believe there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is number 8. And we're going to look at the end of the video. I'll sort of rank this album against those previous records. But the birth of this era of the band really started with this record, Live in Moscow, 1988. And it's a very exuberant band. It's an awesome band, and it really connects perfectly with the new album in some very direct ways. For example, the big album, the most successful thing that Uriah Heep was doing, that they had going currently when Bernie joined the band, really was the Abominog album. And so they do Too Scared to Run, and they do That's the Way That It Is. And there's a song on the new album that kind of directly references Too Scared to Run and has an amazing feel like the Abominog 80s album, and is one of the many, many great tracks on the new record. So hold on to the end and we'll look at the previous record specifically ranked against the new one. So I was talking about 1989 or 1988 and that album. The three guys who were in the band at that time that still are Bernie Shaw, Mick Box, who's been in the band since the very beginning, 1970, and Phil Lanzon, who joined right at the same time, I think, as Bernie. And then you have Russell Gilbrook and Davey Rimmer, and those two guys make a great contribution to this new record, much more noticeably than in the earlier albums. In fact, Dave Rimmer here has co-written the opening track of the album, and I've always liked Russell Gilbrook's drumming, but on this album, it really just, parts of it, it's sort of part of the story with his drumming, and he's always had incredible enthusiasm and great quality to his drumming, but it's great that those two newer members of the band make their expression on here, because for me, Uriah Heep really gets on fire when they have all the members contributing. That's when they really get started. So I think the best way to talk about this album is to go through it song by song and touch upon maybe the earlier sounds that are here and the earlier Heep history that you kind of hear in the album, because they did such a phenomenal mix. The contribution of the players and the just the different styles of songs and the experimentation that they do is really it's a fantastic blend. They really have some progressive elements that actually come out in this, and their pop impulses and their rock impulses, it all comes together. Sometimes their talents can kind of work against them. They're sort of at odds with what they're trying to do. But here, this album was apparently recorded in under 3 weeks, I think, and which is quicker than they have done it in many, many, many years. And it just has a organic, raw feel. It sounds like the band live. I mean, I have a ton of their live records, and I've seen them live a bunch, and this is the closest to their true live sound. And it's fantastic. I mean, the separation is amazing. The vocals that they do on this album apparently are many more some of it is Bernie Shaw singing with himself instead of the classic Uriah Heep backup singing, which is on here too. But it gives it a real. Bernie just sounds better than ever. He sounds amazing, and his tenure with the band is amazing at this point. You're talking he's been in the band for 30 years. The quality of his voice is fantastic. So let's start with the first song here called "Grazed by Heaven," which is an amazing opening track. It really gets the album started off with just fire and energy, and it really gets the Uriah Heep ship up in the air, and just amazing. Very melodic. It's the first writing contribution from Dave Rimmer, and it's just a really, really cool song. It's gets you excited to hear the rest of the album. And the next track is called "Living the Dream," the title track, and it's just a fantastic Heap song. It has these real classic, uh, kind of epic elements, these like hard rock, heavy epic, and just changes in the verses where you're really more than, one of the things that was so great about David Byron is you're kind of like hanging on to every word that he says in those classic albums. And Bernie really has you here with that. I mean, you have him. You're just following his singing and his feel for the lyric, but just a great tune. The next track is they've also done a video for. The video I don't think is very good. The song itself is just absolutely fantastic, and the opening lyric here, it says, "Take away my soul. See the look upon my face. That's forever. Looking all around, trying not to fall from grace. That's forever." The way that he delivers that line is just so cool with the music. It's just a great hook for the song. So right away, even in the first three songs, you've got uh, these songs that are rocking, but just have a lot of depth to them. It's just really, really cool. The next two tracks end side one. So we have "Knocking at My Door," which goes into "Waters Flowing." And it just is an amazing change up in the album. Uh, "Knocking at My Door" is this sort of paranoid, heavy rocker with almost I think Iron Maiden "Fear of the Dark." Just a real cool vibe on that one. That one is 4 minutes and 58 seconds, and it's just kind of a mid-paced heavy rocker that just gives you everything that you want. Really a cool track. And then "Waters Flowing" is just an amazing song. It takes you on a little story of this guitar that is found in the water, and it really just has this feel of like even classic Demons and Wizards, where you feel like you're listening to Lord of the Rings story or something, and it just is an incredible track. Uh, it I feel like might be my favorite track on the album because it's real unique. They haven't reached out for something like that in a longer time. When they definitely are always working within the Uriah Heep framework, and sometimes they'll go back to a template, in a song. But this one just really does that, but stays original, and it's just a real kind of a magical track. Side two changes things up again in just an awesome way. You have "Rocks in the Road," which is the longest song on the album. It's just over 8 minutes. And this is just a gritty rocker about determination. The rocks in the road, but we get up again. And just classic Heap theme and great vocal from Bernie. And then they just rock it out, and they progressive it out. They really do themselves justice. Last couple albums, they've been a little poppy, where you just it just the production seemed like a miss, and maybe the targeting just seemed like a miss. This is just so spot on. The next track is called "It's All Been Said," and it's one of the more serious tracks on the album. And it's really a theme that they have hit on before on like "Wake the Sleeper," which is information overload, and it's just a great track. A really again a mid-paced, thoughtful, but the melody and the hook. Um, I was mentioning the players, knocking at my door. The drumming from Russell on that is sort of part of the song. It just really is cool. Uh, so the last three tracks on the album are "Goodbye to Innocence," "Falling Under Your Spell," and then "Dreams of Yesteryear." And again, they sort of change it up as they go for the close here on the album. And "Goodbye to Innocence" is just a great rocker. Just both this song and the next song are kind of about seduction, and this song is just a great just a rocker, just a fun one. The fun rock and roll track that's just about seduction, and very clever in the lyrics though. And then the next track, "Falling Under Your Spell," kind of the same thing, but lyrically, but darker, kind of a more interesting melody and a better, chorus. Just an amazing track. Both of those tracks are just 3.5 minutes. And then on "Dreams of Yesteryear," they do they close the album with just a lot of class and interest and style. And the lyric here is, let's see, "But all the while our hearts were one as love brought us together. The pain of youth will drown in ecstasy. The more things tend to change, the more the young will make it better." And it goes on, but that optimistic message of things will carry on is just it's just great. It's ends the album on a fantastic note. So I was saying how great the first track is. The last track just ends the closing. They do it with they really hit some on that song and elsewhere. They hit some amazing sort of folk elements, which are amazing. And they're so good at that. Things like on the Sonic Origami album that have a very acoustic thing, and that just has it. It just goes out on a great melody, and kind of leaves it to your imagination. Does not hit the sentimental card too hard. I think it really just does it perfectly. So that is my track by track review of this album. And so thank you for watching. I am going to do, as I said, the comparison here. In 1988, when he joined the band, the first album they came out with was this one, which is a real good one in the catalog, "Raging Silence." Had a very slick, probably a too slick for what was coming, grunge and everything. I mean, it sounds like it's sort of an earlier '80s, but it's got a great songs, great performances, a good Heep album. Then you have "Different World." You have "Sea of Light," which has a real full-blown progressive. This is sort of the one that makes me think of Yes the most. It's just real long form, but the songs are long. This one is like incredibly rare on vinyl, and it's 12 songs long, and the songs are longer. Then you have Sonic Origami, and then there was at least a 10-year break. I'm forgetting exactly how long, and they came back. Lee Kerslake was no longer in the band. This was when Russell Gilbert came in. Trevor Bolder, rest in peace, was still in the band. But this was a stormtrooper of an album, "Wake the Sleeper." They kind of sound like modern Saxon, even a little bit. The songwriting was incredible. Now, this is the album that, in my opinion, stands up the closest to the new one. I can't say that the new one is better than this album, but I think it's as good. This is a 5-star album, and so is Living the Dream. So that's my official position. This is, just a almost, uncharacteristically hard rock, heavy metal for the band. It's just, but the songwriting is so good, the sound is great. It's as organic, but compared to Living the Dream is more accessible. It's more classic Heap than this sort of later Heap. I think the new album harkens back to the history of Heap more than Wake the Sleeper did. Then you have Into the Wild, the last album with Trevor Bolder. And there were some real questionable songs on here in terms of just there's T-Bird Angel. That's just sort of a fun song, but, you sort of wonder where, you're not, where are we in the album? Where are we in Heap history on this song? That said, there's just some great material here, but the lead-off track, for example, Nail on the Head, kind of a bland track. The opening, Grazed by Heaven, is a much better song. And then the lead up right to this is Outsider. And here, the last song has always bothered me, that it's sort of a kind of a bummer. Just it's a little bit melancholy. Definitely has its high points. You really had the feeling of that they were close to something here with the quality of it. It was really good, but it was a little sterile. It was studio sounding, and some of the songwriting was definitely not up to snuff. And on the new album, I think it's their most accessible and the most, montage-like without being, but it sounds, if I'm just listening to this in the background, it sounds like it could be a live album from them anytime in the last 30 years. And that is an awesome thing. So thanks again for watching. Happy days. Take care.